In this chapter, we're going to cover two control flow constructs that can be used as alternatives in decision-making situations and in repetition situations. The first of these is a switch statement, and it's an alternative to the if-else-if statement when you have certain conditions that would warrant using the switch instead of an if-else-if. First, let me just go over the general form of the switch statement. The switch statement begins with the keyword switch followed by an expression. That expression is normally some type of value that you want to test for, like a grade less than or equal to some value, or is a letter equal to a vowel, those kinds of things. Inside the switch statement, you have what are called case clauses. A case clause starts with the keyword const, followed by what is termed a constant expression, and that will be a value that you're testing for. So for example, you might say, is this expression equal to A? For example, if we were working with letter grades. And then if it is, if it's true, then inside the case will be your set of statements to perform for a true condition. Then following the set of statements, and that can be 0 to as many as you need, then you have a break. The keyword break signifies that you're finished with the switch statement and you're ready to move outside and back to the next line of code. If the first case is not true, then a second case can be tested. Notice that I have a colon after the expression. That helps the compiler know where the block of statements is coming. And after the constant expression, then you have another set of statements followed by a break. And you can keep doing this as many times as you need to. So I'm going to signify that with this ellipsis here, 3 dots. And then finally, if none of the other cases are true, then you have a default. Inside the default will be another set of statements, whatever it is you need to do if none of the other case statements were true, and then you close off the switch with a closing brace. This will make a lot more sense when we look at an example, so let's pull an example up real quick. There we go. So let's work with a letter grade situation. So we're going to create a variable letter grade. And then we're going to say enter your letter grade as a prompt. What we're going to do here is tell a person with the letter grade what their range of scores would be. For example, an A is in the range of 90 to 100, and so on. So we get the letter grade from the user. Now we perform the switch, where we look at the letter grade. That's the expression. It goes inside parentheses, like so. And then right below there, we open the switch statement. So our first case clause is case letter grade is equal to A. And if it is, then we want to say something like an A is in the range of 90, right down here in the next line, to 100 in Del. And then break. The break says to leave the case clause and go out of the switch. If it's not an A, then we check to see if it's a B. And then we write cout. A B is in the range of, let's drop down before we do this one, 80 to 89. Break right here. Then we do case for C. $70 to $79. Break. Case D. Cout. A D is in the range of 60 to 69. Break. And then case F. Cout. AF is in the range of 0 to 59. Break. And then default. In this case, the default would be we don't recognize the input. And we'll just write don't recognize input to be a little bit concise. Okay? Let me scroll up so we can look at the whole statement. It's kind of long. So there's our switch with letter grade, and then letter grade is compared against the A. If that's not true, then the B. If that's not true, then the C. If that's not true, then the D. If that's not true, then the F. And then because I have a default, and just like a else and an if, the default is optional. I don't have to have a default there, but you normally want to handle a situation where none of the other case clauses proves to be true. So let's build and run the program and see what we get. Oh, okay, I see what's wrong here. I need to put a closing brace and a open on these strings. So let me add that in real fast. No big deal. There we go. So we'll put a space, then no space, scroll down, space, delete to right there, and one more. There we go. Let's build and run again. There we go. So let's try a C. The C is in the range of 70 to 79. Let's try another one. So we'll run it again. F. F is in the range of 0 to 59. That's right. Let's just do one more. We'll do an A. So that's how you work with a switch statement. The switch statement only works with integral values. So integers and chars are all you can use with the switch statement. If you have doubles or strings, then you can't use switch and you'd have to use if-else if. But when you have an integral value, like an integer or a char, since a char is stored as an integer, then in situations like this where it's a highly structured problem with many decisions to make, a lot of times it's easier to read a switch statement than it is to read a if-else if statement. In my next lesson, we'll look at another example of using the switch statement.